Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right. Another beautiful day it was. True indeed, true indeed. Being born and raised here in the Steel City, all 47 of my years. Yeah, definitely very used to winter and in the cold seasons, but you can find some good times in the snow as well. All right, folks. December 21st, right? Beautiful. A lot on folks' minds, so I figured I would maybe revisit a couple of subjects that I previously made videos about, right? Or at least touched on previously in some of my videos. For example, genetic manipulation on the planet, right? Groups like the Annunaki, right? Some other things that I see a lot of folks expressing interest on YouTube, right? And, I'm 47, and I have been, for those who who know me would verify, I've been sort of a student most of my life, right? And I'm saying all that to say that there may be a few things that I have had the privilege, time, or ability to learn, maybe gone in depth on a few subjects, right? And maybe I can add some additional light. That's really my only purpose, is to try and help, right? I've far gone away from debates and from arguing with folks or trying to say my point is right and that point is wrong. There are many different truths, so to speak, right? What is your truth? So, I say that to say that certainly the best form of information is that which you obtain yourself. So no matter what I say or anyone else on YouTube, please, please always do your own free-thinking research, right? Do research without someone else's opinion in mind or even your own predetermined opinion in mind. Just get whatever facts and information you can, raw facts, process it that way, and then form an opinion. It's just my advice, right? I think it's a good method and pretty scientifically sound. All right, so we have a lot of different sources from which we can draw information on the subject, let's say, of genetic manipulation. I'll make that the broader topic because the Anunnaki sort of fall in line with that. Okay, so archaeological evidence supports that the earliest civilization, at least that we're aware of, to come in contact with the Anunnaki is that of the Sumerians, right? And those who may not be familiar with ancient Sumer, that is over in the Mesopotamia region, or what is referred to now as Mesopotamia, right? They have very intricate records, very detailed records on their interactions with the Anunnaki, actually. Most of them coming in the form of stone tablets, right? These tablets have been translated, right, by a few folks. Most recently, and I would say pretty impressively, by a very sharp guy I'm trying to make sure I say his name correctly. Oh, okay. Brother Billy Carson, that's his name. And he's done a very thorough job and a very widely respected job in that translation. Probably one of the first translations of those tablets was provided by Dr. Zachariah Sitchin, right? So these tablets, like I said, are very detailed. All right, have a good one. Peace, love, respect. Very detailed in their description of interaction with the Anunnaki, right? And they even also give us a pretty clear glimpse into their civilization and how their interaction with the Anunnaki impacted that, which was in a number of ways. And one of the most profound would come in their early development of spirituality, or better described likely, religion, right? I talk about in my book how many of the world's dominant religions have roots and concepts that come out of that time period, and most specifically the religious, right, or spiritual practices of the Sumerians. It's pretty deep. So, like I said, I go into that in greater detail in my book. Which, please, by the way, feel free to check it out. Available now on Amazon. Peace, love, respect. This is the New Way by King Sadiq. All right. Yeah, those translations touch on something that I can actually correlate to my own education, right? Training, education, whatever you want to call that. In high school, even junior high, we learned about genetics, right? And we learned about some of the origins, right, of man. And man and woman, don't want to be sexist at all, right? And we see, or at least we're often given reference to, a sort of gap in the evolutionary chain, right? Which is often referred to as the missing link. Scientists having an inability to account for a huge evolutionary jump in the development of primates on this planet, right? Now, that's a very a very interesting aspect of the subject altogether when you start talking about primates and evolution, etc. Not suggesting that we are monkeys, that we're not primates, right? Somebody brought up a very interesting point. I think I even heard this in one of my man K Reno's songs. You know, if we come from apes, and that's what we evolved into, then why are apes still around today? Why did some evolve and some not? So the bottom line is that, well, they're actually separate species. But I don't want to get too far off subject with that. But we always, or science has always, particularly genetic science, has always pointed to that missing link. Well, the reason that correlates to all this is that that missing link is now being proposed to be the genetic interference of the Anunnaki, right? These tablets that have been translated, in fact, detail a genetic manipulation program that was implemented by the Anunnaki, right? Now, what I need folks to understand, or what I would love for folks to understand in going further in this video in terms of understanding this, and where I'm coming from on a lot of these subjects, is that there have been multiple genetic manipulation programs. I guess the word perpetrated is okay to use, on this planet, right? By other advanced civilizations, or at least that's what evidence leads us to. I said that there are other forms of evidence we'll use, and some of that is a little more traditional, right? If that's the right word, or should I say, it comes from an area that delves more into African heritage, right? But there was a very interesting and important interview. It's not as easy to get a hold of these days, but David Icke, many of you may be or may not be familiar with him. YouTube has gone on, or well, I don't want to single out YouTube, but let's just say, actually, YouTube, yeah, but they're not the only ones, is the reason I say I don't want to single them out, but he has been sort of removed and banned from a lot of social media platforms, let's just put it like that. But anyway, before all that took place, all the censorship and whatnot, David Icke did a very long and detailed interview with one of the most well-known and well-respected spiritual leaders in the continent of Africa, and that would be the Zulu spiritual leader, Credo Mutwa, right? So, who recently passed. Rest in peace, good brother. And thank you for all you gave us while you were here in the physical, right? But yeah, this video is very deep because he talks about in detail the fact that it's not even hidden. It's sort of something that is very much known culturally on the continent of Africa, that there have been other civilizations directly responsible for genetic manipulation on the planet. Particularly, and likely, some of the most early, if not the first, genetic manipulation programs were perpetrated by what is referred to as reptilians, right? So, these reptilians, I could go on for quite a while to give you a history there in terms of reptilians, but I think you can find plenty of information on that yourselves, right? What I will say is that according to Credo Mutwa, when these reptilians first got to this planet, they settled into the continent, right? They arrived where life was first thriving, which, for anybody who has done a little history on that, was on the African continent, right? And there weren't just primitive primates running around. There were human beings, right? There were people on the planet. And anyone who has done even a little bit of research knows that the notion that human beings have been on this planet and erect and intelligent for only, 20-something thousand years is preposterous. There are, in fact, remains of, well-developed, right, modern black people, right, if you want to use that term, or Africans on the continent that date back millions of years. I think there was her name is Annie, was the first, if I'm not mistaken. They named her the remains of this African woman. They were over 2 million years old. Check on that for your own edification, right? But the fact is that man has been walking around on the African continent for quite some time, right? So these reptilians came in contact, according to Credo Mutwa, with black people, noticing their advanced society, right? And noticing their incredible spiritual advancement, right? According to Credo Mutwa, not only were the Africans on the continent at that time very much advanced in terms of their civilization and their spirituality, but they had quite a few mental capabilities that we don't see displayed commonly today, which, referring back to what I always was taught, was that human beings don't display anywhere near their full potential mentally, physically, etc. anyway, right? Well, apparently what these reptilians ran into were human beings who did display this, right? And he talks of, telepathic abilities, etc., right? That's real. That, in fact, and again, if you just know a little bit about human potential, it's not even far-fetched, right? Some people say, oh, superpowers and all that. Nah, I didn't say anybody was flying around and using heat vision. But telepathy, telekinesis, right? Incredible attuneness with nature, animals, the weather manipulation, all those things. Yes, real. 100% real, right? So, nonetheless, apparently the reptilians deemed these advanced humans to be fairly formidable, right? And because of that, apparently devised this genetic manipulation scheme, where the human beings subsequently were taken through a scientific process, right? Genetic manipulation program, from being 12-strand DNA to 2-strand DNA. Right. Quite a big difference and a big change, right? So, the first obvious question is, if they were so formidable and had all these abilities, how were they able to be subjugated and then manipulated in this way? Well, this is where understanding higher vibrational frequency resonance comes in. When you exist, when you live in a higher vibrational frequency, particularly a higher vibrational frequency society, as these early Africans did, you have no concept of deceit. You have no concept of manipulation, of ill intent. You know only higher vibrational frequency emotions and intentions, right? You do not have the need to dominate another being. You are sovereign within yourself. And because of that, you might even call them a bit naive in terms of deception, and were deceived by these reptilians. This is all what was given in the story by Credo Mutwa when interviewed by David Icke. So, there's at least two, right, genetic manipulation programs right there. The one done in Mesopotamia by the Anunnaki refers to, according to the tablets, manipulation of the Anunnaki on the primates that they found there, right, to form a certain species of humans, okay? And it actually is stated that they were likely created for the purpose of mining fine metals like gold, right? Okay. But then you also have that program, and let me just state that the first explanation or the first situation is supported by the missing link theory, right, that scientists have dealt with for decades now. Now, the second program, despite being just referred to, or despite me relaying it to you via the interview of a spiritual leader, is also actually supported scientifically, in that there is in fact evidence of manipulation of human DNA in that manner, and those other 10 missing DNA strands, or those DNA strands that were interfered with, it is scientifically supported that they would be what is referred to as junk DNA. So there are correlations that we can rely on to tell us that, okay, there's some tangible, measurable, right? There's some scientific data that we can correlate to these things and give us some basis on which to move forward with that. So this will be part one. I'll do part two either later today or tomorrow. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of the fact that there were multiple genetic manipulation programs done on the planet. Those done by the Anunnaki, which, as described in the tablets, that in itself was a process of several programs, right? What was done by the Anunnaki. And then the other manipulation that was done by the reptilian species, right? And, I heard it mentioned that not all reptilians are negative or have the destruction of, mankind, and they're not all, and that's true, right? Folks, anything prejudicial where you think, it's really honestly no different than saying all black people are this way or all white people are that way or all Irish people are this. You understand what I'm saying? It's prejudice. We have to get rid of those terms or those ways of thinking if we're going to be accepted in what is referred to as the galactic community. That's a whole nother subject. And I know folks is like, what? King Sadiq went there with it. But yeah, I mean, think about it. Step back from it and just think of it on a scientific level alone. And I think you will see where what I'm saying makes a bit of sense. All right. Again, this is part one. Part two, we'll get a little deeper into some other things I wanted to touch up on and refresh. Maybe a little bit more on these two genetic manipulation programs and how there actually is evidence of other genetic manipulation programs, and perhaps I'll even touch at least just a bit on the subject of planetary seeding. All right. So like I said, the subject goes very deep depending on how far you're willing to go into it. And there's evidence all along the way. Again, I will point everyone to doing that research for themselves and benefiting from your own independent research. All right. So, yeah, we'll make that be about it for part one. And I thank you all again. I hope that there was at least some of what I'm saying that helps.